Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And tonight is what I call Mindset Monday. Today is Mindset Monday. And I have a very interesting topic and four very dynamic guests that are going to be talking about this topic. The topic is the TMH FSU merger, and TMH, for those of you who may not be in the Tallahassee area, is Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare and FSU, Florida State University. And so we'll talk history, we'll talk the current situation, and then what some of the future may be for this merger or something else. But before I bring my dynamic panel on, I need to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn, and your comments and questions are very much so welcome. This is an interactive live, and we fully expect to hear from you. I typically talk around mental health and wellness, particularly in Black and Brown communities. But this wellness for me extends beyond just mental wellness, and this definitely this healthcare issue here in Florida's capital city is going to have an impact on our area. So I see Ozzy Daniel on from Virginia Beach, Virginia, who's a clinician and is a regular on Conversations with Nicole. Appreciate you being here, Ozzy. So I know there'll be others that are joining us. There'll probably be a number of people who are new to the platform. So I invite you to subscribe to Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel. Again, we are here Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Definitely focusing on our health and wellness. I see Enigma Sep. He said, gonna need a part two. You already know, E, what it is. And Warren Cave. Yes, Warren Cave from Tallahassee. Tallahassee from Miami is on and popping tonight. We got Chuck Hobbs. Yes, Mr. Akbar, Marlon Williams Clark, and the great Arthur. Yes, Bruce Strouble in the house. Joyful Place, Tallahassee. Thank you for being here. And my mom, thank you for being here, Mom. We had a great weekend here in Tally Ho. Appreciate you tuning in from Miami. Love you. Dikebra, thank you for being here, listening in, still helping the kids with homework. Love it. Appreciate you giving us a shout out and just acknowledging your presence in the space. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bring my guests on. No bios are being read tonight. I'm gonna have them just introduce themselves one by one quickly because we need to jump right on into this conversation. So up first is attorney Mutaqee Akbar. Y'all help me welcome him.
Hey, how you doing, Nicole? I'm glad to be here. Let's get to the show.
Okay, love it. All right. Up next is Attorney Chuck Hobbs. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Next is Dr. Bruce Strouble Jr. Thank you for being here, Bruce.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, Nicole.
My pleasure. And last not least, Dr. Marlon Williams Clark. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Let's get to it.
All right. So we have a situation, right? Where there's been conversation about FSU and TMH merging. The city's involved with this. And so, I got a few historians on tonight. So I want to start with history, right? Because I think it's kind of difficult to kind of know where we might potentially need to go if we don't know where we have come from. So I'm gonna lean on Chuck. I'm gonna lean on Marlon heavily for this piece. So give us the backdrop.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm a little older, so I'll call deference,
All right.
Mr. President, Dr. Marlon Williams Clark. Both of us are Tallahassee natives, and I think that's important as we go through the discussion. We were talking this weekend about the fact that we've got multiple generations that lived here in the Tallahassee area. And what's important about that is, as Black men who are descended from the enslaved and from people who went through Jim Crow, we can't have any discussion about what's going on with this potential merger without discussing Jim Crow and the things that our ancestors went through here in Tallahassee, Florida, the greater area surrounding Tallahassee, Florida, with regards to systemic racism, some of the vestiges of which we still are experiencing to this very day. So to cut to the chase, we all know that there were 3 schools that have gone through different names over the course of the last 150, 160 years. But essentially, there was what we now know as the University of Florida, which at one long stretch of time during the Jim Crow era was an all-male school for white males. You also have Florida State University, which for a very long stretch during the Jim Crow era was an all-white female school. And then it went co-ed right after World War II to accommodate all of the men who were coming back from fighting abroad who were on the GI Bill. And then at the same time, you had Florida A&M University. It was obviously called other things, FAMC, State Normal College for colored students and what have you. But essentially, that was the school that the Florida legislature in 1887 designated to educate our formerly enslaved ancestors, and still exists to this day. So with that in mind, during that period of time from 1887 all the way through 1971, and we're talking about 5 months before I was born in May of 1972, Jim Crow was the law of the land here in the state of Florida. Sometimes I get very frustrated because I have friends from across the country who will say, oh, well, we don't consider Florida to really have been like the Confederacy, or, we see Florida as different. I'm like, yeah, whatever. The part of Florida we're from, well, all of Florida was the Confederacy, but North Florida and Tallahassee in particular, sure enough, the Confederacy. You're talking South Georgia, and if you go to the West, you're talking Lower Alabama. And so with that in mind, racism was systemic, it was rigid. And what that means is that when it came to healthcare, we could not be served at white hospitals or by white doctors. And a lot of people really don't understand that history, which is Florida A&M University, as early as 1911, had what would eventually become the FAMC and then the FAMU hospital. It went through different iterations, but it was a full service regional hospital for Black people. We're talking about as far west as maybe Pensacola, which is 2.5, 3 hours away, all the way up into Lower Alabama and in South Georgia. And it served as a place where doctors were trained. It served as a place where nurses were trained, served as a place where midwives were trained, served as a place where Black people could go and get as quality a care as you could imagine during that dark period in U.S. history. And then all of a sudden, once Brown versus Board of Education was decided in 1954, and then you had about 10, 15 years worth of litigation all across the South, including Florida, trying to prevent that from happening. Slowly but surely, the seeds of integration started to take root. And with that, by 1971, the decision was made that Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, which is at issue right now, and it was founded, I believe, in the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken, it would finally integrate and allow Black doctors to be able to have admitting practice within its halls, and allow Black people to be serviced in the hospital. And so with that, unfortunately, as we have seen all across the country, often when Black institutions suffered the most when it came to integration, our schools got dropped to high schools, got dropped to junior highs, or they were closed altogether. Our hospitals were shuttered. That's what happened to the FAMU hospital. So you'd be surprised how many people, when I wrote an article about this a few weeks ago, were like, I never knew FAMU had a hospital. I was like, absolutely. And it was a fine hospital, and the building still stands to this day. It's the Foot Hillier Administration building now. But if you ever really walk in it, and we all have, because we're here and we're Rattlers, born or by going to school here at Florida A&M, if you walk through it, it looks like a hospital. I mean, again, it's a school administration building now, but you can see where the emergency room was. You can see where the patients' rooms used to be and what have you. So with that in mind, last part I want to say about this before I swing it over to my brother and fellow historian, Dr. Williams Clark, this is that when people, I read a comment from another good friend of mine, City Commissioner Curtis Richardson made a comment in the paper the other week, which is, we've got to stop seeing Florida State University as the boogeyman. Well, Florida State University is not necessarily the boogeyman in its modern iteration, but Florida State University is still very much supported by MAGA Republicans who are the boogeymen, plural. And so when you recognize that and you understand that what was Jim Crow is really becoming Jim Crow 2.0 at this point in time, like Public Enemy used to sing back in the day, you can't trust it. And so with that, the problem that I bring to the table tonight, as we begin to discuss, is all of this was done in the dark. And I continue to harbor some reservations about the idea that understanding that legacy that we're talking about right now, that there was no consideration of bringing Black people to the table, FAMU or other Black stakeholders like the NAACP, the Ministerial Alliance, and what have you, to discuss, hey, these are the things we're going to try to do. Because again, it's almost like a recrudescence of what was once before, which is you look up one day and we had a hospital, and then one day we didn't. We had a law school at one point in time, next day we didn't. And so we have to be the watchers on the wall to make sure that we pump the brakes and make sure that whatever is about to transpire over the next few months is something that's in the light. And I look forward to discussing what the memorandum of understanding looks like and some of the things our city commission has been trying to do to make sure that, you know, there's fairness and equity in what's about to transpire.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. So Marlon, I'm gonna kick it over to you. So
Well,
give us your.
I don't even know what to say after that. but I mean, just tapping on to what Chuck said. You know, yes, Florida was the Confederacy. I can remember growing up that they used to brag about Florida was the only state during the Civil War whose Capitol building was not destroyed. And, you know, I used to think, oh, that's cool. And it wasn't until I grew up and understood what they were bragging about. It wasn't a flex. These people were celebrating white supremacy and celebrating the Confederacy. And so you just have to have that understanding of knowing, living in Tallahassee and understanding the dynamic between the different racial groups in this county and in this city. When we're talking about the FAMU Hospital is, if you were Black, you were born at the FAMU Hospital or you were born at the house. And FAMU Hospital is where my parents were born, aunts and uncles were born. And like Chuck said, when you walk into Foothill, your administration building, you can tell that it was a hospital, especially if you go to the clinic. That was obviously the emergency room. And it looks like an emergency room. And so, you know, tapping on to what he's saying about, you know, we have to stop looking at FSU as the boogeyman. But the truth of the matter is, FSU, maybe not on its own, but people who have been in power at FSU, along with people in the state legislature, have been the boogeyman when it comes to FAMU. And so when we're talking about Brown versus the Board of Education and you know, integrating places around the country, it really destroyed a lot of our institutions. And they saw it as, you know, it started with the law school. Mm-hmm. I believe to this day, you could go into FSU's law library and find books with FAMU Law School stamped in the book, because they literally took the law school from FAMU to give it to FSU. And so then we fast forward to, you know, the hospital, in which we were training nurses, but not only were they training nurses, they were also training midwives to make sure that they had somewhat of quality to deliver those babies at home if you could not make it to the hospital. So FAMU's been providing healthcare professionals for a very long time. And once integration happened and basically TMH is forced to hire Black nurses, they didn't hire that many. And so, you know, there were some nurses that lost their jobs. Dr. A.J. Brickler, who was at the FAMU Hospital, who the women's pavilion where all the babies are delivered now at TMH is named after him. But he started out at FAMU Hospital, doing the same thing he does. He was the one to start training other doctors and kind of lead the way of that integration of bringing Black doctors into TMH. But TMH was very resistant. And so when FAMU did close, and I can tell you why this is such a sore spot for people who live in Tallahassee and remember the FAMU Hospital operating. When they decided to close FAMU Hospital, because at that time, basically FAMU Hospital was kind of up under TMH in a sense. And so you had M.T. Mustian, who is was the director at TMH, who the new surgical center is named after. He decided that he was going to announce the closing of FAMU Hospital on Christmas Eve. And so that hurt a lot of people, and he did it strategically to make sure that there were no students on campus to protest. Now, they said it was because, FAMU was operating at about over $200,000 in debt, but they never invested in the hospital. Once they started to get patients in TMH, they were no longer throwing dollars at the FAMU hospital. And that's from the state level and the city level. And we have to understand that our city did not look the way that it looks now. It was unimaginable to imagine Black faces on the city commission and the county commission in Tallahassee, Florida. It was very much the Confederacy, and it was very much a pushback. And so there are a lot of last names that exist on buildings and streets in this city, and those families still exist here. They still what we call old Tallahassee money, in which their forefathers and had a lot to do with trying to make sure that segregation stayed in place as much as possible. Whether that is, talking about the country club golf course, whether you're talking about the hospital, or whether even, further going into the 80s and talking about the merger of the College of Engineering, which was with FAMU, but because FSU wanted it, the state legislature just made it happen to where it would be a joint school. But nobody's talking about a joint school for the College of Medicine. I have heard conversations where in the 1970s, FAMU was doing so well that there was some at FSU that believed that FAMU would surpass them. And so you best believe that people who had the power to make it happen made sure that would not happen. And so when we looking at the legislature rule of not having unnecessary duplicate programs in the same city, it has only been used, as we have witnessed in Tallahassee, as Rattlers, as Tallahasseans, it has only been used to hold FAMU back. And whenever FSU wants to move forward with something, many times they get it without a pushback. So when people are skeptical about this particular partnership, I guess you could say, or merger, or however you're seeing it, it is because of some very real witnessing that has happened about a lack of care for FAMU in the community, and giving preference to FSU in Tallahassee. And I'm not saying that that FSU doesn't bring a lot of money to the city, because they do, but FSU is also taking over the city. When I was growing up, you did not see FSU everywhere as you see it today. So, historically speaking, like even when we talk about our College of Pharmacy at FAMU, if you talk to some of the people who were at FAMU at the time in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, they would tell you that FSU have been pushing to get the College of Pharmacy. And one of the reasons that we have, speaking of TMH, one of the reasons that we have satellite campuses for the College of Pharmacy was because our pharmacy students were not able to do their internships at TMH. There wasn't that many places that you could go. You might be able to go to a local pharmacy, but it wasn't that many places that you could do your internship. So they had to go to places like Jacksonville. There's a pretty decent showing of pharmacy students in Jacksonville. So we just have to understand the history as to why people are very skeptical about this, because we don't know. People say, I've heard like, people are operating in fear. And there's nothing to fear but fear itself, quoting Roosevelt. But fear is not It's not fear when you're basing it off of evidence of the past. We always talk about we got to look at history to understand where we're going. Well, people are looking at history and have some questions, and they are skeptical about moving forward when they've seen things happen in the past in this city.
Absolutely. So points well made and taken. So folks are chiming in like left and right. And we will ask you all for your thoughts about what should happen. But I want Mutaqee, if you don't mind, kind of bringing us up to speed to kind of where we are currently.
All right, I appreciate that. And before I get started, I do want to commend you know, Dr. Marlon Williams Clark, and along with Dr. Bruce Strouble, Dr. Marlon Williams Clark with representing NAACP, and Dr. Bruce Strouble representing Tallahassee Alert, because many wanted to say that the deal was done and that Black people had pretty much like kind of jumped on board to what the last deal was. And a couple of weeks ago, the headlines were kind of I don't think it like accurately reflected what was going on. But it did show up in a way to say that the Tallahassee NAACP said kind of like, hold up, we still want to take a look at this. And not that it was a huge disagreement or that there was like some infighting, but it's still also the understanding that, that we're not a monolith and that there are parts of the community that still wants to be a part of the conversation. So it in this political environment, it does take a lot of courage to like kind of step in and say, hold up, we still need to have some conversations and challenge the people who we put in office to have those conversations. So I do want to commend, the Tallahassee NAACP and Tallahassee Alert for not only like keeping the conversation going, but also taking the time to educate ourselves in order for us to educate the community. And that's what we're doing right now, is making sure that we can educate the community. So with that being said, the bigger picture is there's the TMH FSU merger. As everybody know, that Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, and we just heard the history, is considered like the community hospital. They have a $1 lease from the city of Tallahassee. So they lease the land from the city of Tallahassee for $1. And that's been going on since 1970 something. So for quite some time. They currently renewed that lease, that $1 lease. It's a 40-year lease that we're in right now that TMH has with the city. So as a part of that deal, they're supposed, like Tallahassee, the TMH has board members, a board of directors. And what's supposed to happen is that the city is supposed to approve each board member that comes forward. And they're also supposed to approve major decisions. What's been happening for the last 40 years or since it's been in existence is there's pretty much been a rubber stamp. TMH come forward, the city rubber stamps it and just say, okay, and everything moves forward. And that goes for board members, that goes for major decisions, that goes for everything that happens with TMH. They've pretty much been operating independently. So this year, TMH came to the city of Tallahassee and they requested to change the governing board's name to Heiress Alliance Board. At the same time, TMH also created a campus in Panama City, and this was essentially like the first quote unquote merger with FSU Health. So FSU Health and TMH were they have a partnership in Panama City to create this medical campus, which is significant, which is good, which is a good thing for the Panama City community. It's a good thing for the rural community because we know a few years back, like Bluntstown's hospital went down. A lot of the rural hospitals are going down as well. So it's a good thing that's happened. What happened when they went to the city of Tallahassee to ask about, creating this changing the governing board's name to Heiress Alliance, the city of Tallahassee said, hold up. We're not going to rubber stamp this. We have questions. And so it not only turned into we have questions, it also turned into, as a matter of fact, we're thinking about selling the hospital, selling this land where TMH is located. TMH, again, when we mentioned that it was going on in the dark, some of these conversations, some people will say, have been going on for years and not necessarily in the dark because people in the know knew, but the community didn't know. We didn't know what the conversations were. We didn't know what the deals were. We didn't know that FSU was at the table. We didn't know what was being created. We just thought that the FSU Health and TMH was kind of like a one-off, but not that there were conversations to bring FSU on to TMH completely. So since then, and that was probably what, like 8 months ago, 9 months ago, like in March when the conversation, when the announcement happened. So from there, TMH immediately responded and said, hey, this is a hostile takeover. We didn't know what was going on. Y'all not going to take TMH. So there have been a lot of conversation that's been going on, and we can get into like the different segments of the conversations. But one of those, the conversation that where we are right now, and this is where FAMU comes into play and TSC comes into play, is the conversation about who sits at the table if there is a merger. So the other conversations that's been going on in the back to say, okay, we need to stop this fussing and fighting publicly because it's dividing the community. So what can we do to make this okay? So what we can do to make this okay is TMH and FSU said, all right, let's come up with an MOU. Let's bring this whole thing together. And so when they said, let's come up with a MOU and bring this whole thing together, TMH board is made up of 17 seats. And so what they decided to do with those 17 seats is divide it 9-8. 9 being TMH seats, 8 seats being FSU. And that was the MOU. And then everybody said, rightfully so, well, what about FAMU? And then it was, what about TSC? And so that's where these, and when I say people, that was, and give Reverend Holmes credit for that, and even Diane Williams-Cox credit for that, to say that they need to be at the table because the conversations had been, if this merger takes place, what happens to the FAMU programs? And so when that started happening, the agreement, from our understanding, we've been having conversations with people from both TMA side and the city side and FSU side. So within the agreement or understanding or conversation was that, and this is when FAMU said, okay, we're fine with 1 seat, even though they, Attorney Marvin Johnson said, President Marvin Johnson said, we want 3, but suddenly they came back and said, okay, we're fine with 1 seat. And the reason the 1 seat came from FSU agreeing to giving up one of their seats, which would have looked like 9 seats being TMH, 7 seats being FSU, and 1 seat being FAMU. And then TSC came in the picture. And in that conversation, people are saying, and we weren't part of those conversations, but people were saying that there was an agreement for TMH to give up one of their seats to TSC, which would have been 8 seats TMH, 7 seats for FSU, 1 seat for FAMU, and 1 seat for TSC. Last week on Friday, as late as Friday, TMH voted on that proposal in order to give TSC that particular seat, and TMH said no. And a lot of people say, well, why say no? It's just 1 seat. And so we asked those questions as well. And so TMH's perspective is that if they give up that seat, they have 8 seats. There will be an aggregate total of 9 seats in the hands of the state, in the hand of state institutions. FSU being the state institution, which will have 7 seats, FAMU being the state institution, which will have 1 seat, and TSC being the state institution, which will have 1 seat. So that would give the majority to state institutions. The concern, of course, with that is the environment that we're in now, and also what would it look like in the future. And so, and credit to President McCullough, and not about this particular issues, but I've had conversations with President McCullough, and I know Dr. Williams-Clark has, and he is not a part of like the good old boy politic part of it. I can say that, and I think everybody in the community can say that. He wants to get the deal done, and he wants to get the deal done for the future of this community. The concern is that the state institutions are being infiltrated by DeSantis like people, and so you have the Surgeon General who doesn't believe in vaccines, who we have a legislator that doesn't believe in gender affirming care. We have anti-DEI. We have all of those things that are not only being talked about, on a broad scale, but they're using our state institutions to facilitate those philosophies. So we saw it at UL. We've seen it kind of at TSC, kind of at FAMU, kind of at FSU. When they said get rid of DEI, all of those institutions did things to like kind of water down DEI, get rid of programs and all those things. So if the hospital becomes attached to these institutions, then what happens to programs that benefit our community? And so that's where the question comes. We've heard, well, this needs to happen because TMH is not doing well financially. So FSU needs to save them. And so I was talking to them, like, so I went to the homie Chat GPT to say, like, okay, like, how do hospitals function, or like, do hospitals typically function at a profit? And the answer is no. Like, most hospitals, especially nonprofit hospitals, don't typically operate at a they typically operate either at or below their operating expense. So they're not necessarily like a for-profit. So the money part is not really an issue. The real issue is about control. And that the biggest argument right now that's going on is like, who is going to be in control? Is it going to be TMH? And the argument for TMH being in control is that is locally, is everybody is local. These are local business people, local folks, is city folks. If we stick to what the plan is supposed to be, then the city commission is supposed to approve who it is. So we still have local control over our hospital, and our hospital do certain things really well for our community, such as indigent care. $80 million our hospital spends in indigent care. What happens if it goes to FSU Health? What happens if the aggregate is in the hands of state institutions? Will those things still take place? So that's, in a nutshell, Cliff Notes version, and it's all other kind of things going on. I know Dr. Strouble has some insight as well, but that's what the conversation is right now. And I know we'll get to the point of like what our asks need to be based on what the conversations are right now.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that, Mutaqee. We are a little more than halfway through our conversation, and it looks like we may have to extend this a little bit beyond our hour. And as Enigma Sep already said, within the
part two.
Right? So for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Conversations with Nicole. We are talking TMH FSU merger with Attorney Mutaqee Akbar, Attorney Chuck Hobbs, Dr. Bruce Strouble, and Dr. Marlon Williams Clark. And we talked history of FAMU Hospital. We talked history of TMH, and Mutaqee just really kind of brought us kind of up to speed with what is going on right now. I mean, we heard some murmurs back in March, but it really kind of came out like within the last, say, 30 days or so. Yeah. Right? And so, Dr. Strouble, if you could just give us some of your insight as it relates to all of this. And the comments are flying. Like I want to get to the comments, but I want to get out like where we are so that we can then talk around like what we think or what the ask should be, and hear from the community in terms of what they believe the ask should be. Okay.
So I really see it as we got 4 different interests at play here, right? We have TMH as this private nonprofit organization that's running the hospital in its partnership with the city of Tallahassee as another player in this. Then we have FSU. And then we also have the people of Tallahassee who seem to have been left out of this process. And that's where the problem ultimately is for me as a community person. As we've all been discussing this, is like, well, what have the people said about this? And when you talk to people, they've been largely uninformed. This was seen as kind of rushed through. We heard murmurs in March. Then in September, there's a leaked email from TMH telling us that they reached a deal already to take control. And it's kind of like, well, wait, the commission hasn't voted. What's the commission got to say about this? Everyone's showing up to the commission meeting to hear it. And then we're learning in that lead up time that the city manager has already spent $20,000 on evaluation to see how much things cost. And it's like, we haven't even had a discussion about, there's been no public comment. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is the people own this in partnership with the TMH organization. And then you also have our representatives at the city of Tallahassee who are supposed to be stewarding this for us. So it started to appear that the city has started to move for whatever their reasons were. We've heard different arguments as to why they were trying to move in a certain direction, but they started to move in favor of the deal without letting the people know. So that's when all the alarms went off. And, I was talking to my team. I talked with Dr. Marlon Williams-Clark, and I talked with Mutaqee. We talked to Chuck. Everybody was like, well, wait a minute. We need to find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately the process unfolded through secrecy, and there seems to be financial entanglements going on in the background. But the problem for us, what was triggering, is as you just heard that history, we haven't been involved in the process or the conversation. And for everybody, we're seeing the alarm and that red flag showing us like, this is the FAMU losing the hospital again. FAMU's getting excluded. The people, the Black community is getting excluded. What's going to happen to indigent care? So I go to the city commission meeting and I'm saying, well, what assurances do we have that anything that we want is going to be protected here? Mm-hmm. And I'm getting blank faces from the commission. They're just like they seem ready to move forward. Now, I think they did slow down once they saw the public start to ask a lot of questions. So I am happy about that. But ultimately, there are a lot of issues that need to be answered as how much is this hospital worth if it's sold, if FSU's buying it, and what assurances do we get of community representation? So what I hear from both sides, FSU is not wanting to give up their board seats because they feel that they're putting the money up. And then from TMH, they don't want to give up their board seats because they're arguing they're representing the community's interests. But then, when you look at TMH's current board, you have to ask how many of those people are actually like representing the interests of the people in Bond and the people in Frenchtown and all these different communities that make up Leon County and Tallahassee. So that is where it starts to get really tricky, and there needs to be more discussion. The city has amazing leverage in this situation. And as a citizen of Tallahassee, I want that to be used to make sure that we all are getting the best for whatever the decision is made here, that it makes the city better and it leaves our state of healthcare better in Tallahassee. We don't want to end up in a situation where this hospital is lost to the state or it's lost to some private agency, and then we all get screwed in the process.
You can say that.
So I'm gonna keep it short, but there is a lot more to be said about this, and I'm hoping as we get more comments and get the discussion going, I'll chime back in.
All right. So I'm gonna yield to my panel to see if there's anybody else that wants to speak on the topic. Again, I know the history's been kind of laid out and kind of where we are, although, some things we aren't privy to or, just have yet to be kind of revealed. But is there anything you all want to share that you think we should know in addition to what's already been stated? And then we can, I think, delve into kind of some possibilities.
So I guess, and I'm not sure of this, there's a public hearing coming. Is there another public hearing coming up? And then the vote is supposed to be in December? I know Dr. Bruce or Marlon.
As far as I know, there hasn't been a date set yet.
Okay. Correct. Okay. That's my understanding.
Okay.
But the understanding was that at the last one, they decided to vote after a public hearing, but I don't know if that date has been set.
Okay. All right. So with all of that said, I know we have kind of talked around some, like if it goes the way we have most recently heard in terms of this merger, what's that look like? What could potentially be the maybe pros and cons of it, or benefits of it, or if it doesn't go that way, what could potentially be the outcome as it relates to it? And look, Jordan is chiming in right now. What is the ideal outcome? Additional board seats for representation, guaranteed inclusion, protections in the deal. Perfect time, Jordan.
Y'all mind if I jump in there with just some of the potential outcomes, and then we could go in there. So I think one thing we've been hearing is that FSU will be able to expand care, expand services, and make this financially stable. And we all raise concerns about that, because what they mean by financially stable is that sacrificing indigent care, because that's a no deal. That's a deal breaker for us who care about the community. So when we talk about the ideal situation, for me, and as I've heard it discussed, we want community representation on the board, and understanding that, I'm a FAMU and I love FAMU, but FAMU could become beholden to a state decision, as could TSC and FSU. Then we still need public representation of the actual people who live in Tallahassee, not just the universities, on that board. And that doesn't mean just the people that have been approved at TMH. I'm talking about people who actually are experts in indigent care, people from the nonprofit sector who work in social services. I want to see them represented on this board to make sure that our interests are protected in this deal. And I think the city has leverage to make that happen, but they're going to have to be pushed to do so. But I'd love to hear other things that people are thinking we should do.
One of the things I'd like. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Williams.
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things I'd like to see done, and I know that the commission, particularly Diane Williams-Cox and several others, Curtis Richardson as well, they've done this in the past. I would like to see a series of meetings take place where everybody comes to the table. And I'm not talking about an emotional type setting. I'm talking about where you have city commission representatives there. You have TMH representatives there. You have FSU representatives there, since this is a community-based merger that's about to happen, where people can ask the tough questions that we're having on this panel tonight directly to the players. Because again, depending on who you talk to and when you talk to them, you get different variations on the same theme, but the theme being money. Cash rules everything around us. And on one hand, I've heard from some very strong sources that TMH is in the red right now, significantly. And then on the other hand, I've heard from some sources that TMH is barely in the black. And my instincts tell me that with the rush that we have seen from certain players in terms of, we've got to get this deal done. We've got to get this deal done. Part of the rush and the concern is that if a deal is not done, if FSU does not take over and be able to bring to the table all of its significant financial heft, that TMH will be, I think Dr. Strouble made the comment, or may have been Mutaqee, but may be in a position where, again, it's like carrion on the side of the road and the vultures are going to come pick at it. And the vultures being HCA type organizations or some type of equity firm that is going to come in, pick the carcass, and then raise the prices up that are so high, in addition to eliminating indigent services. And that would be a net negative for the community. And so I think as community stakeholders, taxpayers, we deserve to be able to have all of the people who have a vested interest in this matter to come and sit and talk and allow people to ask questions and learn. Bring the financials, do a PowerPoint, let us know what's going on so that we can then put pressure on our elected representatives to be able to advocate on our behalf in terms of, hey, we got to make sure that all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that all interests are provided for in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right.
I would just start off by saying I think I could speak for everybody on this panel and most people in Tallahassee and the surrounding counties that TMH service. I believe they service 21 different counties because there's so many different rural counties around us. Everybody wants better health care.
Yeah.
Everybody wants better services. If you've ever been to TMH emergency room or what have you, you know that it could be better. So I want the public to understand that we're not arguing about, whether to have better health care or not. We want better health care. But there are questions that exist as to how that is going to look. And so I think one of the things that should be of concern and that citizens should be asking We have this Panama City Beach campus that was built by TMH in partnership with FSU. And so if FSU were to take over TMH, buy the assets and control the hospital, we do know that they have interest in Panama City because that was the initial project. So one of the things that we need to be assured for is that we need some type of timeline for the Tallahassee community about what type of improvements can we expect to see at TMH if this deal goes through, and what would happen within a year's time, 5-year time, 10-year time. And so like we know that there needs to be some remodeling that needs to happen with the hospital, which I think some is already happening anyway. We know that pay for nurses and things can be better, but one of the things that we have to make sure is that, number one, indigent care is taken care of, that nobody is left out without some type of health care, when we have been a community to make sure that people who have less are still able to be treated. And we need that in writing, not in a fine print. We need it in black and white where everyone understands this is the role that has to be taken. And, there's a lot of talk about MOUs, but MOU is, and Attorney Akbar, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not an attorney, but MOUs are not necessarily binding. You got to have some hardcore contracts in putting these deals in place. So we need to make sure that indigent care is taken care of. One of the things that I want to see if this happens is that there is some cultural competency training amongst doctors and nurses at the TMH facility to make sure that everybody, no matter your racial background, your gender identification, your lifestyle, or what have you, you will get the utmost best treatment that you can possibly get, despite what biases may exist with nurses and doctors. And we need to have some type of assurance that if you don't get that quality of care, you should be able to go to, there should be somewhere for you to go to make that complaint and something be done. Because we have seen in healthcare recently in our own state where they are making legislation to make it harder for people to just live and get the necessary healthcare that they deserve. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. If you believe in the 14th Amendment, if you believe in America, then everybody, everybody should get the same treatment. I always tell people that, if you have privilege, then you should be, if you're a true American, you should be advocating for your next door neighbor or person that you don't necessarily agree with to have the same privilege. And if you're withholding that privilege, then you're part of the problem. So those are some of the things that we have to be assured with, that FSU will make TMH a priority to get the upgraded healthcare that we need. I know there's been talks about raising the standards of healthcare. We want to see that, but we want to know, how long is that going to happen? How long is it going to be before new supplies and materials come to the hospital? How long is it going to be before we can start seeing a significant decrease in wait time if you go to the emergency room? All of those things, we need those insurances in place. And I agree with Dr. Strouble and some of the other things that has been said. Like, we need community representation. I think that is something that the community has to push for. If we are going to have a hospital that serves this community, and we're having a university that is on the board and has a great investment into the hospital, we need to make sure that on the TMH side of the board, that we have representatives from all different parts of this county. And I must say that we have to, I'm not exactly how you do this. I know there's an MOU as far as the protection of FAMU's programs. FAMU has provided the majority of healthcare professionals throughout this region, and in the state of Georgia and through the state of Florida and Alabama, with our nursing program, with our allied health program. And I don't think everybody understands what comes out of allied health. And shout out to my wife, who's a 2-time graduate of allied health.
You got to do that.
Yeah, I got to do that. But The Allied Health has healthcare administration, occupational therapy, physical therapy, cardiopulmonary sciences, which is the major for respiratory therapists. So we provide a lot of healthcare professionals in this region, and let's not forget about the renowned pharmacy program and now our public health program, which is growing significantly as well. So because FAMU provides so much in services and personnel, FAMU should definitely have a seat at the table. Now, I'm crazy enough to even offer to put out there that if we're going to have an academic healthcare center, every institution in the city should be involved because every institution in the city contributes to those healthcare professionals. And so we should have an equal stake. I know that, FSU can focus on rural care. FAMU can focus on minority care. And TSU, don't know what
TSC.
their would focus would necessarily be. I'm sorry, TSC.
Nursing.
Let me not upgrade them already. But for TSC, they also are providing nurses into the field like nobody's business. And so we also have to understand that TMH does not just provide services for Tallahassee and Leon County. TMH provides services for Gaston County, Jefferson County, Madison County, Wakulla County, Taylor, Liberty. There are so many counties in which if you need severe help and have to get to a hospital, you got to go to TMH. And so one of the things that we should also be pushing for is because we service those places, we need to talk about having campuses in each of those counties where they can get full service. Now, if it's something more severe and you have to get to TMH, that's fine, but it should not be where, if you go to a particular satellite campus of the hospital, that if it's, that you could easily die just by being there. We need to have more services to extend out to the rural community, because the truth of the matter is, I'm always speak up for Black people. I'm pro-Black. That even if that means speaking against Black people, anybody that's trying to destroy anything of Blackness, I'm gonna speak out against it. But the truth of the matter is, because of the history of our country, and therefore our state and our city, there are a lot of Black people who are on the poverty line or under the poverty line or just keeping their head above water like good times. And so we need to make sure that they are also have the best quality care available to them as well. So those are some of the things that we should be asking for and pushing for. And I encourage the citizens of Tallahassee and Leon County to reach out to the city commissioners and ask to meet with them. Like they are beholden to us because we put them in office. And from my experience, they will talk to you. But we have to all get active and all show up and make our voices be heard.
Great points, Dr. Williams Clark. And I want to bring another, angle to this as well. Is if the sale takes place, then it's going to be a sale, and if it's going to be a sale, then that means there's money coming to the city. And so if there's money coming to the city, and we've done this in other sales that the city has had, something that we could directly do, like we can have MOUs in place with FSU, which we should, or we should have like stronger contracts that requires FSU and the board and TMH to do certain things if this merger takes place. But we have a more direct impact on what the city does with that money. Because like that's something that we can see. So if there is $100 million sale of the hospital, or if there's a $50 million sale, whatever the amount is, I think we should tell the city to set aside a percentage of that money to go towards Bond Community Health Center and Lincoln Neighborhood Center. Because they're underfunded. And a lot of people in our communities depend solely on those institutions for their primary health care, for preventative health care, for our kids, all of those things. So I don't think it's a hard thing to ask to say, look, if you get $100 million from FSU from this sale, we want 10% of it. I mean, that's a lot, but that's $10 million. $5 million go to Bond Community Health Center, $5 million goes to Lincoln Neighborhood Center. Spread it out over a time period. And then what you can do with that money, you can require Lincoln and Bond to have a contractual, not an MOU, a contractual relationship with TSC and FAMU, for training those nurses, those occupational therapists, those like physical therapists that then they can train at these neighborhood centers in order to, again, like it'd be training ground, and then it gives better health care to people that go to those specific places. So I think in addition to the conversations that we want to require that happen with the merger with TMH and FSU and FAMU and TSC when this takes place, because I think it's a win more than it's an if, we also need to hold the city accountable for the money that comes back.
Yes.
To not just go into some general fund, but to come back to the community that's probably going to be affected most by this merger. And then that can directly affect indigent care as well, in addition to what we will require or ask them to do as a part of the merger.
Great points. Love it.
Very good points. So the comments have been blowing up. Jordan is my recapper. She said, so what I'm hearing is we want to have community representation on the board, a preview of the plan with timeline guarantees, hospital staff inclusion and sensitivity training, protection of FAMU programs, service extensions to satellite campuses, and when the sales happen, as has already been stated, 10% of the proceeds to go towards bond and neighborhood community health clinics. So again, lots of comments, lots of questions, but I definitely do want to hear from the viewers to hear if there's something beyond what has already been stated that you all are interested in seeing. Or
Daryl Parks is in the chat.
Yes,
yeah, Park said we need a dental school out of there. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I like that too. That goes more on the state level, and that FAMU could push for. I think we all think we need that, and I think that is something to keep it short. And as an alumni of FAMU got to find its path too. In this whole conversation.
Yes.
And one of the things, in furtherance of what Dr. Williams Clark just said in that regards is, one of the things that I heard time and again this spring during the very contentious confirmation process for Attorney Marva Johnson to become the president, the one thing that her initial supporters constantly touted was her lobbying ability, her lobbying skills, her contacts with state government officials, federal government officials, and what have you, and that she would be able to bring in the money. And so with that, now that she is our president, I would really like to publicly call on her and the FAMU Board of Trustees to consider the feasibility of asking for 50 million, 60, 70, however much, to try to come in as more equitable partners in this situation. If we want a dental school, we're not begging Mr. Charlie for a dental school. That those are our tax dollars that are being filtered to Florida State, Florida, USF, and all of the other schools. So with that, I would love to see her put her skills to work in that regards, to see if we can get our share of money, so that, like, if we were playing poker, well, we could sit down at the table and get dealt in, so to speak, as opposed to trying to beg in and what have you.
Yes, and I want to follow that up in that I think FSU has, at least in the public light, they've come in with the idea of being collaborative and being part and treating this as a community thing. And I think if they really want to do that, understanding the history in which this has unfolded, it's really important for them to allow space for those types of partnerships to develop. And that also means on FSU and TMH's side, that board representation, who gets to not just the seats at the table, but who actually has those partnership contracts, that's going to be critical. And that will go a long way towards starting a process where we could talk about healing when we see good faith from the other institutions involved. So,
yeah. I think it was another question about is there a concern that transferring ownership from local governance to what would essentially be state level oversight, that it would be subjecting healthcare decisions to political influence? And I think that's a strong concern.
Yes.
As far as like what happens, and that concern is the reason why TMH is holding strong. When we've had conversations with people from TMH side, like that's the reason why they don't want to give up another seat. It's because they don't want that state influence on local healthcare decisions. And I share that concern as well.
Absolutely.
I think we all do. I think we all share that concern about the state having a heavy influence on our healthcare in this city, especially when we're used to having a community-based healthcare. And again, I am not mad at FSU for pursuing this.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
as we have seen around the. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying one thing we might have overlooked, is in the MOU. There's something to the degree of requiring a super majority. And I don't think we talked about that tonight to make a decision.
Yeah,
I think you need 13 votes to make a decision, and that's why even though neither side will have to win votes from the other side in order to get something done. So that is something that is at least one roadblock to having the state take it over. But I could still see TMH's concern there. But that is something to keep in mind while these negotiations happen. That supermajority makes every vote on that board that much more important.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I was about to say, I think like to kind of frame our conversation, because there's so many things that's going on. I think the bottom line is like better healthcare. I think everybody can agree that the bottom line is better healthcare. The other conversation is like who controls the board, but I think for us is no matter who controls the board, our values need to be at the top of the conversation, and our values are like the indigent healthcare, the like not getting left behind as far as like FAMU goes, and the minority community goes as well. So I think what we're saying to the commissioners, what we're saying to the government, what we're saying to both TMH and FSU, like the community can't get left behind. I don't care what y'all fighting over, but like the community can't get left behind in this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. There was a question around TMH financial. Is it a matter of public record?
No.
Since they are a publicly owned entity.
They don't have to file a 990?
No, I think what has to be understood is that the assets and the property, the land is publicly owned. But as far as TMH Financial, that's TMH Inc. And so that's a private entity. And so that is not public information.
But if they're a nonprofit, and I don't know if hospitals operate differently when they do their 1023s, but I would imagine they have to file a 990, which is public record. They wouldn't get, now they may not post it, but it could be requested if they were to be requested. Yeah.
It's some records out there. I think they did a valuation of the hospital recently, and there's some financials that's out there. Like I think that was in the last budget. In the last city commission agenda, some financials in there as well. It did come up. Lamont asked about the FAMU seat, and I'm sorry, I'm doing your job, Nicole.
Look, hold on a minute, Mutaqee. So listen, we are.
Let me mute myself.
We are a little beyond our hour. Folks have asked if I could extend for 30 minutes. So if you all can roll with us for a little while longer, I don't know if it will be 30, because again, I do want to hear from the viewers in terms of what you all think should happen. I mean, we've heard about, indigent care as a priority, cultural competency training, community representation, true community representation on the hospital board, protecting FAMU programs, satellite campuses in rural areas, and upon the sale, 10% of the proceeds going towards bonded neighborhoods. So if y'all can, hang in there with us a little while longer, because again, we do want to hear from the community. But there was a question about from Michael Hall, would it be more beneficial to have smaller focus groups to present a master plan versus a continued ask, then publish the ask to make more pressure on their actions? Any thoughts about that?
I like to see I think that's a strategy that should be discussed. I have to see the full vision of how it will work to fully get, but I think that's a great idea, at least in the starting place. Now, where we end with it could be something big, but I think that's a great way to start if we want to move that route.
Okay. All right. Mutaqee, bring up the points you had.
No, I was just looking at another question that was on there, but no.
Lamon's question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should discuss it.
Okay.
He said that you all have not mentioned that FAMU seat is to be picked by FSU. That is something of concern to a lot of people, especially a lot of Rattlers, and not just Rattlers who are living in Tallahassee, but I'm hearing it from Rattlers around the nation. And the word that comes to mind when we think about that type of seat with that lack of power, I guess you could say, is tokenism.
Right.
And so if FAMU is going to have a seat, which I think it should be more than one, but if they're going to have a seat, it should not be at the behest of FSU to say yay or nay. And let me be straight up with you. I don't think that President McCullough has that kind of spirit at all.
Okay.
In my talks with him and seeing how he moves around Tallahassee and what he's done at FSU, I don't think that he has that spirit at all. But as I stated in my public statements at the city commission meeting, history precedes Dr. McCullough, and politics will proceed after he's gone from FSU. And so everything that we put in place must be have the wherewithal and the vision to see what could happen in the future and to make sure that we put things in place where it won't happen. So Lamont, to address that, we are not happy with that. For their seat to be at the behest of FSU, for FSU to say yay or nay to that seat.
Has
because
FSU
essentially,
walked that back?
I heard they did. I heard.
I haven't had anything recently on it yet.
But was muddying that up is the TSC seat.
Right.
So Diane Williams Cox actually negotiated for that to be taken out, but that was also a part of the conversation of TMH getting the same deal. I'm sorry, TSC getting the same deal from a TMH seat. And when TMH didn't agree to it, I don't know if that blew that whole part of it up.
Yeah.
But apparently FSU was okay with FAMU picking their own person. Or I think it was President Johnson will do the pick. Was the last of it that I heard.
And then to add to that, for everybody to hear, as concerns have been brought up and questions are being asked from the community, negotiations and talks are still happening.
Right.
They are literally changing every day. So stay on it, stay informed, stay tuned, because I do believe that with the community speaking up, it's not just our voices, it's more than us speaking up. And I think that the city, FSU, and TMH, they are all listening for whatever their motivations are in all of this deal. The community voice has definitely made a difference in how this deal is shaping out.
I agree.
All right. Medical debt protections, Melanie said.
That's definitely something that could be introduced in the negotiations and in the contracts. I think the idea is, I don't know if everybody's been paying attention, but the Trump administration is looking to get us in a situation where they could put medical debt back on people's credit reports.
Yeah.
Previous administrations have removed that. So the way people have been talking about protecting themselves locally is in deals with their hospitals and public healthcare agencies, is that when you make deals with creditors, you make those contracts in a way where they're not allowed to report it to the crediting agencies. They just go and collect the debt, but they don't. So we'll have to do it on our own, being that we won't have those federal protections any longer. That's just the idea, and I think that that's something we should pursue in negotiations. The city has the leverage right now, and this is where we could get the most out of it if there's a transfer made.
Okay. Sounds good. So community involvement is something that I'm seeing. Better healthcare for all. Fayon, exactly, Dr. Strouble. Historically, FSU has not consistently shared space. An optimistic view is that they will shift and look at the greater good in the name of being a better healthcare for all. Yeah. Perhaps.
Everybody said good things about President McCullough, and that he is not the old-fashioned style of doing things. So I remain optimistic, and I also will be watching with that eye of scrutiny, because that's just how I'm trained.
Absolutely.
Let's see, from a financial standpoint, as it relates to the servicing the indigent population, the hospital really needs to utilize the Healthcare Responsibility Act in an attempt to recoup payment for services rendered from indigent patients service from surrounding counties. It's tedious, but also an option. Are any of you familiar with that? No.
No.
I'm not.
The person who wrote that, she's the expert on it.
Yeah, evidently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I think another good thing that this has done is have made us focus on like our hospitals. You know, like they've been operating in a way that's pretty much been, we go to them when we get sick, but not really seeing how something like this can affect us on a very personal level. And one of the things that we have not talked about is the alternative of like a corporate style hospital. And we have one of those here in town, and the difference in billing, like I see it, you know, with some of our clients who have to go through that, like for car accidents, and the difference in billing from a HCA bill from a TMH bill is astronomical. So if we have two of those type hospitals, you know, that will affect us as a Black community directly, and for something like that. So when we say like don't merge, if the alternative becomes another big corporate hospital, we also don't want that. So that's why it's important for us to have a conversation of like not losing what we have, what's important to us, but also get better healthcare in the same conversation.
Let's see. I would treat this like people deal with state legislators across the street. Everyone can email every city commissioner and set up meetings with them at talgov.com. We shouldn't wait for the meetings to happy lobby in between. Malik, we need more transparency from our city commission and the city manager.
Yes.
The grassroots folks to be putting the information out to the public. Shout out to, I guess. Thank
you, Malik. He's absolutely right. If they went, if this deal, I mean, people were worried about the deal getting torpedoed. The quickest way to get this whole thing blown up is to continue to try to move it in secrecy. We have too many people paying attention now. We need all this out in the open so that we can all feel that we are a part of the decision making. It's democracy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alethea agrees with Melanie. I think Leon County Health, Human Services, and Community Partnerships should have a seat at the table to help shape policy and standards impacting local communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what Bruce was saying as far as like a seat dedicated to those people. Yeah.
Because if something should happen to TMH, that's where all of this is going to fall on the local health departments.
Right.
Healthcare practitioners and providers. She said, let's make it happen. Warren, I can say this, after these discussions, I'm more knowledgeable, but I've spoken to 3 high-ranking officials at TMH, and neither one is on board because backdoor deals have been made.
Warren's on point with that. And y'all, that goes back to something we discussed earlier that I'm still adamant about. And I call on our friends on the city commission to, before a final vote is made, we should take it to the community. There should line it up, set it up at one of the churches, one of the schools, and let's talk, because at the end of the day, depending on who you're talking to and when you talk to them, you will get multiple stories about who did what, when, where, and what the outcome is going to be. And so when you can't agree on objective facts in a situation, then the people of this community deserve an opportunity to be able to ask the hard questions and have the people who have the knowledge to be able to answer. And if they don't answer, that's an answer, if you follow where I'm coming from. If they get there and they start squirreling and acting dumb, then you recognize, well, there's your answer. And then we can move accordingly.
Lamonte, FSU went from 1 county bay to 13 with the purchase of TMH. Slick, but major takeover and almost billions in grants and state funding coming. Smart. No comment.
Well, I mean, and I think like that's not necessarily a terrible thing if it benefits our community.
Right.
And I mean, and that's one of the other parts of the conversation, and one of the things that raised the red flag for the city manager and the mayor was, why are y'all going to Panama City with the TMH stamp on it? With our bonding, capacity, with our money, you're going over to this other county, which I think, no matter how you feel about them individually, that's a legitimate concern. Why is our money going over there?
Mm-hmm.
The response, and again, we're hearing it from both ways. The response is, well, this Panama City campus can fund like some of the indigent care, because the Panama City campus is supposed to care for is the Panama City campus is like more of the like more affluent patients are over there. It's not going to be as much indigent care, so they can use whatever profits they make from over there and bring it over here to TMH and able to be able to do the indigent care. But so is there a strategy in place? But those are the conversations that they need to be telling us, instead of just saying like, it's a good deal, don't worry about it. Like, we need to be informed like what those deals actually mean and what they look like.
Absolutely.
All right. We got Dr. Judy Mandrell. I agree with you 100%. Chuck, give the people of the community the respect to be heard.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, Pastor Mandrell. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We can lobby individuals in between, but we as a community need to be on one accord, one band, one sound.
True.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Well, again, this was really just to kind of have an open discussion about, again, the history of Black care in particular here in Tallahassee, via FAMU Hospital, TMH, and to explore or to bring awareness around the proposed TMH FSU merger for FSU Health, and some of the things that we are noticing. There's again many unanswered questions. Still a lot to be kind of flushed out, but also just identify some potential things that we should be asking for, or at least putting before folks that are decision makers. If this deal does go forth, and we did not talk about, as Dr. Marlon Williams Clark has mentioned, the possibility of the universities coming together on their own to form a Tallahassee University hospital.
Yes.
Because why couldn't that happen?
Right.
Yeah. And and that really depends on how leadership, those institutions approach it. I do believe that, however, because there is great concern about state control over our local healthcare, what we mean by that is all three coming in is that all three institutions have the ability to get grants and funding to do research that will improve our healthcare, and improve different materials and supplies and machines that we need here at TMH. But also, going back to something earlier I said about ensuring that we have certain things in place. We have to be real about what city we live in and the population that we have. And so we all need more doctors. We need more specialists. If you have children with any issues that they have to see a specialist, we need more pediatric specialists in this area. But one of those promises have to be, like when I talk about the timeline, how is it that you're going to bring those doctors here? Because let's be real. I mean, I love Tallahassee because it's my home, but it's not the most attractive place to bring those surgeons and those doctors who are, yes, they care about medicine and practicing, but they also care about money. And so, we have to make sure that those personnel and those things don't go straight to Panama City, but they come to Tallahassee, because you're looking at Panama City Beach. You got a beach. You have some higher income there. You have some different things that would be a little bit more attractive to go there instead of Tallahassee.
Yeah.
We need those insurances of being able to get those doctors and specialists.
I saw a lot of comments saying we need a part 2, we need a town hall, and I just want to offer Tallahassee Alert. We would love to partner with everybody here, especially NAACP, Tallahassee chapter, and holding that town hall so we can get more opinions in the room. And we got medical experts, we got healthcare experts in our community who have been completely froze out of this discussion. And some of them, this is their first time getting a chance to speak on it in these comments. We need to hear from them.
Yep, for sure. Roger Walker, thank you, Nicole, for the conversation. Thank you to the fabulous 4 of baby rattlers and rattlers I know, love, and trust for their intelligence, guidance, and leadership in our community. Sister Glover, Dolores Glover, is FAMU able to make its own decision during this time, and how are we able to guarantee FAMU its true interest is considered?
I think that to answer that question, I think it really comes with a push from FAMU alumni. I'm gonna be totally honest right now. There's a lot of FAMU alumni that is not happy with the process of how the new president came in, or with the president herself. However, she is the president now. And so if we want to see something as FAMU alumni or protect something, we have to put that pressure on her and engage in her with conversations to say what we would like to see and what we will want. And so we have to do that. We can't depend on her or her team to just know what we want and then to go for it. We have to open up those conversations.
Good point.
Right. And I think that goes back to what Chuck suggested earlier of like the ask from her and for FAMU is go get some money and come to the table with some money. So it's not just a seat. Like we got some money at the table. What's up?
Mm-hmm.
So Melanie mentioned Dr. Florida because of healthcare being criminalized. And Akbar, who works at TMH, says they have wonderful residents, but only 1%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh,
See, that's something to address in itself.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the nurses. Like we hear the same thing about most of the nurses are traveling nurses. It's not people that's like actually here in the community. So that's and maybe that's what the merger improves. Like maybe that could be a plus. So.
Yeah.
And it might be, but we got to see a plan.
Right. Exactly.
About to say, write it down and make it plain.
Yeah. Indeed. All right. T-Rail Bowman, thank you for creating this space for conversation around this topic. Too many people in our community are uninformed and do not understand the potential impact this deal will have on healthcare in our community, be it negative or positive. Thank you for being on, T-Rail. Let's see. All right. So I think we're gonna call it, y'all. I don't want to prolong it, but I did want to at least give the viewers just a taste and something for us to consider, right? Because many folks, a lot of this has been kind of behind closed doors, not really knowing what's kind of going on, just little bits and pieces of things are being dished out. And so I want to thank you all for this conversation, for us pulling this together in like less than a week. I appreciate y'all so much. And I'm down for a part 2, so it doesn't have to be during my regular scheduled shows, but if so, we can make it happen, or even if we do something in public. So let's put together a plan. I know Tallahassee Alert is all about this work. I'm a member, but I'm like I like the grassrootsy stuff. I'm not the political stuff so much. But I'm happy to assist wherever I can. So I truly appreciate you all for sharing the platform with me tonight. And I want to give you all opportunity if you want to give some closing remarks. So let's start with you, Dr. Marlon Williams Clark.
Well, I'll just start by saying what my mantra is since I became the NAACP president. It's time to show up. And so we're seeing that a lot of things are happening around our city and our county, our state, and our country. And we can no longer sit on the sideline and just hope for the best. If you do not show up, either going to set the table or you're going to be on the table. And, and we should not be settling for crumbs as a community. I like to tell people I don't settle for just a seat at the table. I want the whole kitchen. You got to go for the whole kitchen. And let me also say that as we are doing this work, I'm going to have to put this out there. We're having our Freedom Fund banquet next week, November 13th at 6 p.m. at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center. Go to naacptallahassee.org and buy your tickets now. Buy your tickets now. We have Bishop Quincy D. Griffin Sr., our keynote speaker, as well as entertainment by Tallahassee Nights Live. And this is one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. And we need your financial support. We need your physical support in order for us to stand for this community and make sure that things are getting done. So please get your tickets now, or you want to buy a table or be a sponsor. It's all on our website to purchase. But going back to how I started this conversation, it's time to show up. And if you want to see something happen, if you want answers, you got to email the city commissioners. You got to call, and don't stop calling. Don't stop emailing until you get an answer, because we all deserve that.
All right. Very good. And that was naacptallahassee.org.
Correct.
All right. I'm putting it in the chat. All right. You got some folks saying, get your tickets. It's time to show up. Come on, Mr. President. Love it. All right. And that's naacptallahassee.org. So support. All right. Mr. Hobbs, I'm going to have you go next, please.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole, for hosting this conversation. Brothers, it's always great when we dwell together in unity, as Psalms 133 says. And I just want to always invoke the ancestors, remember the struggles that they went through. And as long as we do that, we have nothing to fear. We should be able to walk boldly, and we should be able to speak truth to power. To the city commission, to the board of governors, to Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, or whoever, when it comes to making sure that we look out for what's in the best interest of all of our people. So keep the faith, everybody. Keep asking questions. Keep making the posts, and eventually we will see this thing through, hopefully to the betterment of our collective community.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bruce Strouble.
Yeah, again, it's an honor to be here with these brothers and with you, Nicole. I really appreciate this space, and that this is what democracy looks like, y'all. Like, it's us getting together, talking about the issues, and taking the people we put in office the plan, not letting them give us the plan. So I'm really happy to be a part of that, and however I could support this community and moving our ideas forward. And with anybody here, I'm willing to work in that partnership. So y'all know where to find me.
All right. Love it. And last but not least, attorney Mutaqee Akbar.
Yeah, I want to echo what everybody else was saying. Like, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be a part of this conversation. And like I said, when it came up, I was just kind of in the dark. But once we started kind of knocking on doors and knocking on the pavement to get the real answers, we were able to have this conversation. And this is what democracy looks like, and it's also what community looks like. Like, we will win as long as we stick together. We will win as long as we are able to, agree without being disagreeable, and educate ourselves and educate the community at the same time. And with this same momentum, we got to march it to the polls. We got to put people in place that's not going to have these backdoor deals going on, where our community will always be in the forefront. So, like, let's keep this energy alive, not just for this issue, but for every issue that impacts our.
Amen. Amen. All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. And of course, I have to invite folks who may not be subscribers to Conversations with Nicole to subscribe. We are here on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, primarily focused on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. And this falls under wellness, period, because if we can't go to the hospital, listen, to get the care we need, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So I truly appreciate you all for being on. I truly appreciate our viewers for your comments, for your energy, and for your concern. And so let's keep this conversation going. Please share this link with somebody that you think may benefit from it, and connect with these brothers, because they are always putting something out on social, in the community, just trying to keep us informed and aware and engaged. All right. So thank y'all for giving me an additional 30 minutes tonight. I appreciate it. And we will catch y'all later.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.